Hello, welcome to episode 167 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, 2011's Shame, directed by Steve McQueen, no, not that Steve McQueen, and starring Michael Fassbender, Carey Mulligan, and Michael Fassbender's sizable appendage. I don't know where to go with this review, because it's a conflicting film to me. It's a very conflicting film. It felt like three films wrapped into one with not enough time to tell either of those three threads in a way. The film stars Michael Fassbender as a guy called Brandon who lives alone and has a lot of sex, both with himself and prostitutes and, you know, whatever he can find. You know, he's a sex addict, and this is a film about sex addiction. His sister, played by Carey Mulligan, Sissy, comes to visit, and he wants nothing to do with this visit. You know, he just wants to do his set routine, you know, masturbate, have sex, go to work. You know, that's his routine. That's what he wants to do with his life. And she kind of basically turns up and uninvited and gets to worm her way into staying with him, and he's not happy with this. She upsets the order of his day-to-day life, his schedule, and his I won't say illicit activities, but his activities get disrupted either way. And then, you know, he starts to get very frustrated with his sister's presence when she brings his boss back to the place and has sex with him in his bed, you know. And she's a character, Sissy, who, again, I just felt like a whole movie could have been spent on that character. I think that it was a really intriguing one that kind of was on and off in the film. And I guess that's kind of Brandon's perspective. He's really trying to shut her out, so for times you won't see her in the film. He's trying to get on with his day-to-day life, and there's a scene where she walks in on him masturbating, and then she sees that he's using these sex sites and stuff, and that's when he gets fully confronted with his addiction. And so he tries to move on from it. He tries to shut it out, and then, you know, lots of other things happen in the film. But I felt like a guy dealing with this addiction was a movie. I felt like a guy dealing with this sister was another movie. And then there's a whole other movie about a guy who's trying to move on to better things. You know, there's a great part of the film where he goes out with one of his co-workers. They go out on a date, and there's a fantastic scene where they sit down in a restaurant. It's one take. He turns up late, and, you know, he's being coy about it, and he's coming up across as a little bit nervous, and they're kind of doing the small talk, and the waiter is there, and he's doing his kind of sales pitch, and it just felt so real, and I started to forget I was watching a movie. The performances were so natural, and I got so suckered in, you know, just like the little details, like the waiter comes in to pour the water, and they're having a conversation, and then they kind of lean back and just stop, and water gets poured, and then they go back in. Just the little things that you do in real life were added into that scene, and then they're walking back from the restaurant, and their kind of banter was so believable. That could have been a whole other movie, was those two characters, you know. And they have a very lengthy kind of kinda sex scene, which for the most part I was thinking this is a bit too you know, gratuitous and titillating for me, but then it had a point where he couldn't perform, and maybe this addiction is, you know, really messing up with his ability to perform, but then he was able to with other women. So I guess the idea is that he found someone he could maybe care about, and then he couldn't turn it on for that moment, and so he's, you know, he has to deal with how sex operates in his life. And there's a lot of interesting ideas in the film, I think, but I just don't think as a whole it really pulls everything together. And there's a few scenes where I kind of feel like they're, I don't say pretentious, because I don't feel like that word really serves anything I feel about anything, because, you know, people aren't pretending to be something, they're trying to achieve something. And Steve McQueen's a very good director, but I just, there's a scene where Brandon is jogging across many blocks in New York, and he eventually stops outside Madison Square Garden, and the scene goes on for so long, just running and running and running and running, and I didn't feel like it was adding much to the story. I felt like it was more of a, hey, look, we can do this really long tracking shot, and Michael Fassbender can run for a really long time. And I just zoned out, because I was thinking, when's the next scene, you know? And there was a scene where he is at a very powerful moment in his life in the film, and he goes out to the docks, and it's raining, and he can't contain his emotions. He starts crying, he collapses, and it just felt a bit, you know, and then he's in the rain and he's crying and it's emotional. Like, I didn't feel it, you know, and it's a great performance. He does so well with the acting, and I can say that for the whole film. I think that Michael Fassbender is one of the great actors of this generation, but couple of moments just felt like they were trying too hard, I guess. And you know, there's a scene where he goes out and he just indulges to the absolute maximum with sex. You know, he goes out and goes to this gay kind of underground bar. He goes to some prostitutes. He has this threesome, and it's very explicit and well, not extremely, but you know, it's. I guess you got to show that stuff if it's a film about sex addiction. But I just didn't feel like there was really a resolution to his character, and I didn't feel like that it really delivered on some of the promising threads that were running through the film. You know, again, I think it was at its strongest in that scene with the co-worker. I thought that their chemistry was so interesting, and the idea of this guy who's so addicted to sex trying to maybe realize that a relationship could really do wonders for him. And they mentioned that in the restaurant scene. She's like, well, how long, what's the longest relationship you've ever had? And he's like, 4 months, you know. Yeah, that's just that scene was so good. I just wanted more of that. And there's great stuff in other areas of the film. There's a great scene with Sissy singing at a bar. And it was a great kind of performance, but it went on for ages, and I got to a point where I was like, huh, this is really good singing, I'm enjoying it, but it's maybe gone on a bit too long. I don't know, there's just something about it didn't fully connect with me on some level. I was expecting it to be a lot more explicit than it was. You know, seeing Michael Fassbender's dick swinging between his legs was fine, I guess, and you know, it wasn't like oh, that's too much. And I honestly thought, and I'm glad it didn't happen, that the movie, because I heard that the movie's like, oh, it's quite you know, don't watch it with the parents kind of thing, obviously, but I was thinking it was going to go down the incest route. I really did. I thought this was going to be a guy who's so obsessed with sex that he couldn't resist his sister, and I just thought, you know, and I'm glad it didn't go in that direction. I'm so glad it didn't go in that direction. There's a scene between the two on a couch that is an unbroken take and very emotionally loaded. They do a great job. Carey Mulligan is fantastic in the film. So again, really good performances. You know, shot well. Interesting kind of character, but none of it seems to really. I don't know. So is it a film you should see before you die? Not for me. And this is a 2011 film. And of course the book I've been going off for all these years is the 2011 edition, where, you know, they add in like 10 movies from the most recent year to sell the book. I'm pretty sure that Shame probably isn't in the 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015 editions of the book. If it is, I'd be surprised. I think it's a really good film, but I don't think it's a great film. It doesn't seem to know what it's trying to say for me personally. It needed to have a stronger narrative, I think, and you know, the kind of fragmented storytelling can really work in certain cases, but for this it didn't for me, you know, and it's a shame because I felt like there was a lot of promise there, and it's a story that isn't really told that much because a lot of people don't like to go down that road, and understandably, but yeah, I think that I don't know, it just yeah, I'm a loss for words, I guess, with this film. But, you know, it certainly wasn't a bad film, and maybe I'd watch it again. Maybe I'd get more out of it. But, like I said, I wanted more of that stuff from the middle of the film with the co-worker. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was going to play off more in the rest of the film. I thought that he was going to come back to this girl that maybe could save him, or maybe, you know, a relationship could show him the value that sex can have, and it isn't this expendable thing that he is just... You know, just like a like a drawstring puppet. He's just pulling that string again and again and again. You know, and maybe you wait a while. You know, maybe you let it mean something more. You know, and maybe you try letting it mean something more. But this is a guy who's very regimented in his thinking and in his addiction. And I guess the addiction is the part that plays into it, where he, you know, is compelled to do this stuff. And anyway, the cat is crying. As a symbol for me to close the video, but leave me your thoughts on Shame if you've seen it, what you think about it. Definitely not a film you should see before you die for me, but a pretty good film, you know. There was promise there, and it might grow on me, it might not, I might watch it again and I'd hate it, I don't know, but for me, for the first watch, not so much. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.